Good morning, everybody. It is week 2 of college football here, week 3 of the Tailgate, brought to you by campus2canton.com. I'm here with a cohort of my C2C friends. We've got Chris Moxley down there with the cool man shades. We've got Colin Decker. We've got Matthew Bruning. Brandon Hay is at the Michigan game, so he will not be joining us this morning. We're looking forward to another big week of college football here. Tons of games. It should be a lot of fun here. How's everybody doing this morning, guys?
Doing great. Loving it. Excited for another big week here.
Yeah.
Excited to hear Brandon cry in the Slack tonight when Washington beats Michigan. That's about all I've got going for me today.
He promised us he would be at least 5 seltzers deep by this point in the morning. So
he did say that.
More power to him. I actually believe that. Well as someone who knows Brandon a little bit.
Yeah, after meeting him in Canton, that's not. I wouldn't be surprised if he's like 15 deep at this point.
I would have taken the over on that number.
Should we do a live check-in from Ann Arbor?
we should. Let's see if we can get him on the phone real quick.
All right, enough about Michigan that nobody really cares about. Let's jump into some games here, guys. Before we do that, we do just want to acknowledge today, obviously, the 20th anniversary of 9/11. We coined the phrase "never forget" as it happened, and us here at C2C certainly want to play our part in making sure that never happens. So we are thinking of those that were impacted by those events, and we will be thinking about you all weekend. All righty, guys. A couple of games happened already this week. Not as many as last week. I felt like we could have spent the whole hour just covering everything that happened, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We had 4 or 5 games last night. The big one, Coastal Carolina, Kansas, if we can call it the big one, I guess. Ranked Coastal Carolina team there. A couple guys on Coastal had a big game in a 49-22 win. Grayson McCall, 245 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, another touchdown on the ground. Reese White, I just want to ask you guys real quick, on 14 carries, 102 yards, 3 touchdowns. He's had 2 very fantasy relevant, two startable weeks here in a row. Out-touched backfield mate Shamari Jones there, and seems like he gets most of the red zone work as well. How are we feeling, Matthew Bruning, about Reese White and his value here moving along?
I like it a lot. He's the guy that I want to say you and Colin were talking about during the offseason that I was grabbing pretty late in a lot of C2C drafts. I mean, I don't think he's available now. I'd have to go into Fantrax and pull up his roster shit, but I imagine he's probably owned in upwards of 80-90%, but good. I mean, I think Coastal Carolina is going to have a good offense all season long. If they're able to get down into the red zone, he's able to get touchdowns on top of your ad, and he's getting 100 yards. I mean, that's great. He's a startable running back every single week. I've been starting him in the leagues that I've got him. I think at least a flex play every single week, if not possibly an RB2. So I'm all in on him. I think he's a very, I don't want to say cheap, but a very easily to get running back that you can play every single week.
Colin, would you be aggressively, if say you're a contender on the college side of things, or you think you're going to be here after week 1, you're going to aggressively pursue some Reese White if you have some holes at running back?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that he's shown first 2 weeks here very good performances, and there were kind of softer games too. I think that moving forward as well, as Coastal Carolina needs to actually play offense, win some games. It's a tighter games. I think they're going to rely on him a little bit more even. So yeah, I'm absolutely going out and getting him. And he's a junior too. So he's got 2 years of eligibility. So you don't have to worry about, overpaying for somebody who's going to be off to the NFL and we don't know what their NFL future looks like. You can kick that can down the road for another year.
Yeah, that is always a nice piece of value there. On the receiving end last night, Isaiah Likely, the tight end there that I think we like, no touchdowns. So, tight end can very much be a touchdown dependent position there. But Javon Haile, 6 catches, 122 yards, a touchdown. Was he a guy that you were, looking at for short DFS slates and as a starter in CFF leagues this week, Chris?
Oh, yeah. I loved Highlight this week, and I love Highlight in general. I think he's just a productive wide receiver and one of the better ones. I mean, I saw him going in drafts, like usually between 25 and like the end of drafts, just depending on who was in your league. And I think that was a nice value, and I think that's going to continue. I played him in DFS last night. I think he was the appropriate stack with McCall, and I just think he's a productive player. He was really discounted in the offseason, and I felt like that was a misstep based on what we knew about him and his role in that Coastal offense.
Yeah, a big night for them there. I do just want to toss out here as well, guys. What do we think of Jason Bean, the quarterback from Kansas? Dude's built like a stick, but he's got some wheels. 12 for 23 passing, 189 yards. But his real value last night, 13 carries, 102 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had that long touchdown that he broke down that left sideline there. I would be willing to wager he's probably not rostered in most leagues. Are we going after Jason Bean, Colin?
Are we going after him? Maybe. If you have somebody that you're willing to drop and you're not overly attached to, sure. But I don't know how aggressively I'm pursuing him. I mean, he's like 4% rostered right now on Fantrax, so he's definitely available for you. I don't know if we're going to see that type of a rushing performance from him again. I mean, he'll provide something with his legs, sure, but that seems maybe a little bit unsustainable. But I don't have any problem with if you have somebody you're not overly attached to at the end of your bench, you're a little thin at quarterback, you want to go get somebody, you could find worse options.
Yeah, and as a proponent of zero quarterback, there may be a roster that I don't love my current quarterback situation. So
just one,
just one. I don't know. So that's definitely something I'd be looking at. The other game I think that was kind of interesting last night, that UTEP Boise State game. A couple bigger stat lines there. Jacob Cowing, the wide receiver for UTEP, went 6 for 112 and 1. He's got 21 targets through 3 games. He's getting a little more volume than I thought he might in that offense. He has the nice analytical background in a low volume passing attack. So I guess, I'm aggressively moving him up some rankings here. What are we doing with him overall, Matt?
Yeah, he'll be moving up mine as well. I mean, volume's king. It really does. I'm not trying to say that Cowing is not good at football, because he is, but even if you're not good at football, if you're getting the volume, you're going to score fantasy points, especially on the college side. I just looked, he's 50% rostered, so he's a guy that I would definitely be targeting on my waiver wires, and he'll be moving up mine as well there.
Yeah. The other side of it, Boise State, the offense that is probably more interesting for all of us here. Khalil Shakir had himself a big day. No touchdowns, but 7 catches, 166 yards, 2 nice circus catches on the night. How are we feeling about his draft stock here? I think day 2 is definitely in his range of outcomes here, and he was not priced like that this offseason, was he, Chris?
No, he was going to always be a productive receiver for your college team. I don't think that was in question. But I mean, you've been talking about it on Campus Life, and you and Colin have gone into it too. It's just like he's dynamic, like he's an extremely dynamic player, and I would be surprised if he did not go day 2 at this point. I think round 2, like end of round 2, is in his range of outcomes. I mean, we've seen some small school guys go in round 2, and I think he is a way better profile than a lot of those guys that we've seen go recently. And I really like Khalil Shakir. I think he's still priced too low in C2C, honestly, because I don't think people see the NFL upside yet. I think a lot of people see him as a college producer who will get drafted, but maybe not day 2. And I think day 2 I think there's a better chance he goes day 2 than he goes day 3, as it stands.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, go ahead.
Where would you guys, I know this is kind of like coming right off the top rope here. Where would you guys rank him then in this wide receiver class? Because, I mean, it's considered to not be great really outside like the top 3. So where would you put him? Would you think he can move up into, like, say, the top 10, 5 at wide receiver for you in this class, Austin? Like, where do you see Shakir possibly going, especially if he continues what he's been doing to start the season?
Yeah, so I just pulled up my current Devy rankings here. I doubt he can ever touch that tier 1. My tier 1 is reserved for guys that I think can get into that, consistently thought of as a wide receiver 1 for fantasy purposes in the NFL. I think that's probably a little too lofty for him. But that tier 2, the players that I have in there right now, Chris Olave, Drake London, Justin Ross, John Mechie, Zay Flowers. I think he can touch that or be a high-end tier 3 guy. So that would be like Wandale, Dante Wright, Jahan Dotson level. So, top 10, I think he can definitely, I think would do though, personally. You guys have any Colin or Chris thoughts on it? Top 10?
I think he's already there, yeah.
Yeah, I pulled my rankings up too here. I already have him inside my top 10 for this class. I have him ranked at number 9. He and Jahan Dotson are sitting right next to each other. And my top 10 actually looked very, very similar to what you have there. Olave, London, Ross, Flowers, and then Shakir or Mechie, Shakir, and Dotson. So I think he stays right there in that tier. I don't think I see him jumping up into tier 1 like you were saying there as well. But I think if he's not already inside your top 10, I think you should go back and take a look at him because I think he absolutely deserves it.
Yeah,
just at me next time, Colin. Just at me. My bad. Sorry. Jeez. I think I'm the only one that doesn't, but I have not had a chance to update mine for the next update. But he'll definitely jump up there. If not in the top 10, he will be very, very close to that for me.
Yeah. And shameless plug, our rankings will be updating every 2 weeks now during the season. This is week 2, so guess what? They're going to be updated after this week, guys. So pay attention to that. We will be accounting for all of the the movers here through the first couple weeks. All right, so let's we have a couple minutes here, guys. Jarek has been giving us these really awesome by the numbers breakdowns, and we have another one here for him this week, right, Matt?
Yeah, this is going to be a really good one on early QBs. We got some surprise appearances in this video, so I'm excited for this one.
Perfect. Let's see it.
When you just don't understand the numbers, it's time to dive into the classroom with the beautiful mind of Jarek Backus and By the Numbers.
Thanks. Today, I'll be looking at how likely it is that a player like Kyle McCord or Quinn Ewers is successful without being the starter in year 1 or 2. As we all know, CJ Stroud won the starting job for Ohio State this year, and unless he royally blows it, he's likely to hold on to it all year. That puts players like McCord and Ewers in an interesting position. They'll likely sit all this year, and, if they're really good and Stroud isn't, should start next year. This also means that only one of them will get the starting nod next year. All this is to say neither McCord or Ewers will likely start this year, and one of them may not even start next year. So, what's the likelihood of a player sitting on the bench years 1 or 2 and still being successful? Let's take a look. For this exercise, the sample is QBs drafted between 2010 and 2021 who had high recruiting pedigree. That's 4 or 5-star recruits. I define success as being drafted in rounds 1 or 2 of the NFL draft. Then I defined a season as a primary QB as over 200 pass attempts and a season on the bench as less than 50 pass attempts. Let's start by looking at players who are their team's primary QB in year 1. We see a success rate of 36%. It's respectable. Reminder, success is round 1 or 2 draft capital. Now, let's look at players who are their team's primary QB in year 1 or 2. That's 27%. We're already seeing a dip, but not a bad success rate. Let's move over to where McCord and Ewers likely find themselves. If a player is benched year 1 and the primary QB in year 2, they have a 15% success rate. Yikes. Now, if a player is benched year 1 and year 2 and start year 3 or later, we see a success rate of only 8%. The only players to see success here are Joe Burrow, Cam Newton, and Derek Carr. We better hope neither Ewers or McCord face this uphill battle. Now you may be thinking, but Jarek, Ewers and McCord are good. Why would we lump them in with bad players? Good question. Let's add another filter to only include a player if they earned a QBR greater than 80 in their college career. That's the average of the best season for successful QB as defined in this exercise. As expected, the odds of success go up. Players who are the primary QB year 1 have a 60% success rate. Players who are the primary QB year 1 or 2 have a 48% success rate. Players who are benched year 1 and the primary QB year 2 or later have a 37% success rate. And players who are benched year 1 and 2 and the primary QB year 3 or later have a 33% success rate. That's almost half the success rate of a player who is the primary QB year 1. In conclusion, as a QB rides the bench longer and longer, their draft success rate drops drastically. Keep that in mind as we watch the CJ Stroud, Kyle McCord, and Quinn Ewers saga play out. Now back to you.
Truly, truly amazing work from Jarek and Matt there. So thank you to both of you guys for getting us that this week. And
yeah, I appreciate you and Felix lending a couple minutes to the video there. I appreciate it.
I've always said I should be a model, at least stock photos. So, I think that this is just a natural segue into the next stop in my career. All right, guys. So for those that have not heard or maybe have heard and don't know what it's about, we are partnering up with Prize Picks this season. Prize Picks it's a really cool site, app, whatever you want to call it, that you can use basically for player props. They give you the line. We're going to talk about some of our favorite picks for this week. You can bet the over or the under. You can basically parlay a bunch of them together to increase, the amount of money that you can win. You can play them all, so you have to hit every single one. You can play. It's called a flex play, where you just have to get like 3 out of 4, and you obviously lowers your odds, but you can still win. A lot of fun. Of all of the sites out there that do these kinds of things, Prize Picks is probably my favorite. So I was very excited that we were able to do this year. And yeah, we just want to talk for a few minutes here about some of our favorite plays for the week. So let's jump into that. Am I first on this, or?
You can.
I'm the only person to put names down, apparently. So
yeah, well, much like Colin, I cannot play in Texas, so it's kind of hard for me to go in there and look at that stuff and do all that because Texas sucks.
Yeah, and just before I talk about this, guys, just to let you know, if you have not played this before and you're looking to, you use promo code C2C when you sign up. Deposit at least $20. You get a match of your money up to $100. You get a free year-long membership to our website, and you get to play Prize Picks. So, I mean, what else could you possibly want? So go do that. Alrighty, guys. So I have a couple here that I think are really good plays, and I played in my one that I've done this week. The first one, Brennan Armstrong. Brennan Armstrong, as Chris points out, has only thrown for 300 yards twice in his entire career. Once, was it last year, Chris, that he did it, or was it 2 years ago, that first year that he started? Regardless, it was a long time ago. The other time was last week. He was priced off of his performance last week. Initially, he was at 305.5 yards when they released the lines. He is now down to 288.5. I would still take the under on that. He is more of a rushing quarterback than a passing quarterback. So I think playing the under on that, I feel pretty freaking good about. Emory Jones is another one here. His line is still at 197.5 pass yards. He did not hit that last week. He got benched last week. I think he's probably going to play today, but I'd actually be willing to bet not only that he does not hit 197 yards, that they split some of the time there. Anthony Richardson gets some snaps, which also limits the upside there. So I think that is about the most obvious play of the entire week. Do you guys agree with that one on Emory Jones? Everyone
yeah, 100.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, as much as I hate to admit this, because Austin, you and me got a full dose of Felix patting himself on the back Wednesday night. I think Anthony Richardson isn't long to take over this job, so I do definitely think he's going to go over and probably take over that job. So yeah, I think Emory Jones goes under today on the 197 passing yards.
Yeah, I like that as well. I like the Brennan Armstrong one as well. That's my favorite one of the week.
Yeah, I think they're both pretty obvious plays. A couple other ones here. I have KJ Jefferson over half an interception. You're basically betting on him to throw a pick. He's not a good passer. I know they try to take the ball out of his hands as much as possible in that regard, but at some point you got to let him throw it. And I think he'll throw one to the other team at least. Jeff Sims over 1.5 or under 1.5 touchdowns on the day. This one's a tricky one because I'm not even sure he plays. But if he does, I think he does not pass for 2 touchdowns. I think he might run for 1 or something, but not pass. And then Dylan Gabriel over 2.5 pass touchdowns is another big one that I think he hits 3 today minimum. So those are the quarterback ones that I am kind of playing today. Anybody else have any quarterback prize picks that they like this week?
It's just down to you and Mox on this stuff. Like I said, me and Colin can't do much with it, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, yeah, I would very much love to get in on this, but PA's still behind on the on some of the college stuff. Like we can't play college DFS here either.
We just got the ability to buy booze at the grocery store. So, we're a little behind on some of these things here in Pennsylvania for anybody that Chris, do you have any quarterback prize picks plays that you like today?
I also have Armstrong as well. I also have Emory Jones, but there's not a lot of value at quarterback. I didn't feel like this week outside of those two.
What about running backs, Chris? Because I actually felt that there wasn't a ton of value at the running back position, and I don't even know if I'm playing any running back props this week actually.
So I actually have Sean Tucker over 0.5 rushing touchdowns. I'm not in on the Rutgers defense. I think that one's sneaky. I have Jabari Small over 71.5. Tyon Evans is going to play. Pitt's defense is okay, but I just think that they're just going to pound Small all game. So I kind of like that. I also like LD Brown over 71.5. They're big favorites against Tulsa, and he's the primary ball carrier there. And I actually have a lot of running backs now that I'm looking at it.
There we go.
Evan Hull, I like over 57.5 for Northwestern. They got a cupcake matchup against Norfolk, I think.
Do you like his rush touchdowns too then? Because he's at half a rush touchdown. So if he scores one on the ground, yeah.
And then I like Damian Pierce over 64.5, and I probably also like Malik Davis over. But I don't know if I have that in yet, and I might plug it in. I like if they're both available, I like both of those.
Yeah,
basically,
they were
basically any game where there's a blowout. I like the primary ball carrier.
That's fair. The volume is king there for a lot of that. And yeah, I mean, we'll talk about this later. Georgia running backs are two of my big starts of the week. They were my biggest one that we talked about on the Campus to Canton pod this week. We saw, last week, NC State ran for 220 yards or whatever, 240 yards against USF, and Florida gets to do the same to them this week. Receiving plays, Chris, do you have any intriguing ones here?
Yeah, I also like Jakari Roberson over as well. I think that's really good value. I'm surprised that was still up and hadn't gone up as
it hasn't moved at all. 77.5 receiving yards and 6 receptions. I like the over on both of those, to be honest. I think he can hit both.
I like Jalen Brooks under at South Carolina, 37.5. I don't even know if Jalen Brooks is going to run any routes today, to be honest. He's like the fifth wide receiver there. I think Tyler Snead over 4.5 catches. I like that one. I think that he's going to be the primary target this week. I like Garrett Wilson over a touchdown, which I'm not super hype about that, but I think that it's an interesting one. I think there's value to be had there. I like Bo Melton over 71.5. I think that he's going to be the primary target for Rutgers, and he's just an explosive player in general. And I also like what was the last one I saw? I think it was a Trey McBride over on receptions. But I don't know if they took that down because I don't see it now.
They might have.
They might. So over 5.5 receptions. I think he gets more than that. He's just so incredibly involved. He had like 11 catches last week.
Yeah. To touch on that Garrett Wilson point, I get a little nervous about those receiving props that are like one touchdown. Because then, you're betting on them getting 2. And I think that's a harder ask than maybe I feel about some of the running backs when they give them the just the flat 1 touchdown.
Is Wilson's up to 1?
I thought you said he was.
I think he's at 0.5.
Oh, is he?
A lot of these at 1. Wilson's at a half touchdown. So I like Wilson half touchdown. I think you can get one today.
I was thinking they're both at 1 touchdown. So yeah, if you want to bet on, if you want to on one of those Ohio State receivers getting a touchdown, you might as well just put it on Wilson there, and avoid the headache. I do have Roberson as well, over 77.5 receiving yards, and again, over 6 receptions. He got 10 or 11 targets last week. I think he'll get at least that this week again, and be a little more efficient with them. Emory Simmons, this is going to be a line that I continue to just hit the under until they stop giving it to us. Every receiver that not named Josh Downs that they post, I'm not going to bet on Downs because I'm not sure the value is necessarily there on his lines. I think he's at one touchdown and like 97 yards this week. But I will take all of the other ones. So Emory Simmons is at 4.5 receptions. I'm taking the under on that. And his receiving yards, where is it here? His receiving yards are under 60 or 63.5. I'm taking the under on that as well. I don't trust any of the other weapons in that offense. I don't think we know who the second option is there to even, feel good about putting any money on those guys. So I am taking the under on whatever receiving option they put along with Downs. Last week I won money on Caffrey Brown. I think he had 4.5 receptions. I hit the under on that, and that won me some money. The last one, Drake London, he's at 0.5 receiving touchdowns. So obviously I will take the over on that. I think he scores 1 today. I feel pretty solid about that one as well. So those are the ones that I'm really looking at there as far as receiving production goes. All right. So I think that is going to do it for that section of things, guys. Again, if you have not played Prize Picks before, prizepicks.com. Promo code C2C gets you a year membership with us, gets you a match up to $100 with them. And they always have some cool promos and stuff going on over there. So definitely worth checking out. All right, guys, start sit. We are going to spend a lot more time talking start sit this week than we did last week. Let's jump right into that, and we'll kick it over to you, Matt. Who are you starting this week?
All right, so I'll start at the quarterback position, and I'm going Phil Dracovic. As you can see right down there, he went 16 of 24 for 67.7%, 303 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions last week. They're going up against UMass today, which I don't expect to be a very good game, or at least for UMass. I think Phil Dracovic is easily going to go over 300 passing yards again today. Zay Flowers likely going to benefit a ton from him. I think Dracovic is a smash start, likely going to be, I would say, probably top 15, if not better at position today. I think he was top 10 last week. I have no doubt he can finish up there again today, so I'm going to go with Dracovic. Do you want me to keep going and give you all of mine?
Do your whole list, Matt. I mean, that's probably the easiest way instead of just going around in a circle.
Kenneth
we can
Walker.
Discuss them a little bit if we want.
Okay. Anybody have any thoughts on Dracovic before I move on to Mr. Kenneth Walker?
I mean, I don't think they want to run the ball really there. I think you're muted there, Colin, if you want to toss something in. But
yeah, I was just going to say Dracovic was one of my starts on the Campus to Canton pod this week on Campus Life. So yeah, I'm all over him too. UMass is just not a good team. They gave up 272 yards passing to Kenny Pickett and 39 yards rushing. And I mean, you touched on the passing yards for Dracovic, but I think he's also going to put up some nice rushing totals against them too.
Yeah. Next up for me is Kenneth Walker. He was a guy I've been the highest on over at the site. I was pumping up all off season. Obviously, I don't expect him to go out there and rush for plus 250 plus again this week, but 260 plus, as you can see down there at the bottom, 4 touchdowns. But I do think that he can go over 100 yards again today. They are going up against, I believe it's Youngstown State or Young. Yeah, okay. I just wanted to double check that. So I expect him to get over 100, possibly get close to 140. He does not going to do much in the receiving game, so you're going to have to count on the rushing work and the touchdowns. But I think, again, Walker is going to be a really good play at running back this week.
He was also one of my starts on the show too. So I'm right there with you. We're in lockstep like always.
Now I'm starting to think like Colin has like slowly gotten himself inside my head, and all of a sudden I'm just like, that sounds like why did I? Oh, it's because I thought that. No, really, it's Colin secretly whispering in my ear.
Well, you were the one on Kenneth Walker. So I had tip to you on that one. I was not on him early.
I'm wondering, I don't even know if I want to go with this wide receiver. Did you mention this wide receiver right here? Okay, so I got one of my own. Colin did not influence me on this one. I'm going to be honest, I don't know how to say his last name, guys. I'm horrible with pronunciation. But Eric at Texas Tech, that's what I'm going to call him. Last week, massive game, 179 yards, 7 catches, averaged 25.6 yards a catch. I think he's in for another big game here. Really seemed to work well with Tyler Shuck, I'm sorry, who I think is showing that he can be at least a decent college quarterback. I think they're both going to go out there and have a pretty good game here again today against SF Austin. So I think probably 100 yards. I think he gets a touchdown today as well. So as Azuka Kanama, I don't know, but I think he is a great start at wide receiver. Austin knows how to say it. He's just sitting there like silently letting me struggle.
You're doing great. You're doing great, sweetie.
Yeah,
You're
see?
doing great.
Exactly.
Eric at Texas Tech. That was fantastic.
Eric at Texas Tech. Start him.
Yeah, I think those are all good ones. And guys, before we hop into kick it over to Chris here, I actually had somebody DM me a start sit question, so I want to get your guys' input before I answer him. So somebody messaged me and they said, "Who do I start today? I need one." Will Levis from Kentucky, Talia Tagovailoa from Maryland, KJ Jefferson, Arkansas's quarterback, or Keaton Slovis. Who are we starting out of that group?
Ooh, that's a good question.
I'm leaning at just my initial instinct as I look at this, I'd probably go Slovis and Jefferson would probably be my first two choices between, and then Talia and then Levis last. Like, I don't think Missouri is a great defense, but I don't think they're a pushover either. Slovis has Stanford this week. Jefferson plays Texas and Maryland. I actually don't remember who Maryland.
They got like
plays.
Nichols or like
Howard.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Howard. So I'd have Talia in mind. I just don't know who I'd bench out of Slovis or Jefferson. The Stanford did not look good last week.
No, they did not.
I would play.
I think I'd go Jefferson and Talia for me. I still think I don't know. Maybe because I don't trust Slovis.
I would go Slovis and Tulia. I'm not playing Jefferson against Texas.
He's going to run for at least a touchdown, though. That's the thing. Like,
Yeah.
he could run for 2 touchdowns. I mean,
Slovis has 3 upside though. I don't think Jefferson has a path to like 30 points.
Well, we've got Talia locked in for sure. Then it's really just down to, it looks like, between Jefferson and Colin. Which way do you lean? Because I think I don't know if that's what Austin's saying. Because I actually think that's going to be a really good game tonight as well. Texas, Arkansas. I think it's going to be competitive. So I think Jefferson is going to have to put up points to stay in it. So that's why I would lean him. Where I think if USC gets up on Stanford, which is very possible, they may just start running the ball and let Keontae Ingram take over.
Well, I think the only thing
they're
is
not going to do that. They'll never do that. They don't run the ball.
That may be true.
The only thing is, I don't know how even if they wanted to do that, I don't know how well they could do that. Their offensive line's not particularly great. So I would also lean Talia and Slovis. I do worry a little bit about KJ Jefferson's passing against Texas. I'm with Austin. I'm with Austin that the KJ Jefferson could probably put up a rushing touchdown or 2, but I don't know where his passing volume is going to come from. And then thanks, Mike, for the Will Levis mention there. I worry about him still as a passer. He put up a lot of points last week, but that was against one of the worst teams in the FBS. I don't think Missouri's that bad. I think Missouri's defense is decent. They're solid. And we didn't see any rushing out of him, which is what you want to see out of Will Levis. That's what helps his fantasy value, is the rushing production he provided at Penn State. We didn't see that. So I'm waiting another week.
Yeah, Missouri's pass defense is one of the best pass defenses in the country. I don't think people like realize how good they actually are. They play a surprising amount of man, which is really surprising amount of man. Which I'm not huge on like Wandale or Josh Ali this week because of that. And I definitely don't like Will Levis compared to, he's probably the 4th and like a distant 4th, because I think Missouri's pass defense is pretty good.
See, I actually really like Wandale this week, just because he gets a ton of volume. He's the kind of guy where you just try to get the ball in his hands by any means possible. I think 5 to 7 catches, 75, 80 yards, and a touchdown is definitely I think average. I mean, they got those transfers from Tulsa, or where did those corners come from that Missouri brought in this year? That are pretty good corners. Yeah, they brought in a couple of transfers.
Tulsa, one's from, I don't know. I'm not a IDP guy. You got me.
Whatever.
I just know.
What do we have you here for, Chris? If you don't,
aren't you supposed to be the IDP guy, Austin? Like we rely on you for that. Yeah, we rely on you for that.
Self-proclaimed IDP expert.
What's really shameful? I play in 3 IDP leagues. Only one of them requires corners, so I don't know a lot about corners. And the one league that does, I rock the Penn State duo in it. I'm sorry.
You poached Kalen King for me in that one. I was upset.
Because they have some good corners there as well. All right, Chris, let's kick over to you here. You have, as per usual, a list of about 50 names here. So why don't you just toss some of those out to us? And
I was told to provide a couple I'd like to point out. I really like Xander Horvath this week. I think you can confidently slot him in. He was not super efficient last week. I don't really care. he's a guy that I don't know if he's super highly rostered, but if you have him, they're going against Connecticut, and UConn's like one of the worst teams, possibly the worst team in the country. And I mean, I think the spread's like 34.5. Horvath will get a ton of run, especially in the first half. I really like him this week. I also want to give confidence back to Michael Penix, who, he did not have a good week last week. He got destroyed by Iowa. I think Iowa defense is probably the best or like a top 3 in the country, but I think you can have confidence starting him this week and kind of overlook a very, very tough matchup week 1. He has dual threat upside. He gets Idaho this week. I'm not particularly worried about Idaho. If you have Penix, you probably drafted him to start, and I think that there are, a handful of better options, but I still like him to do fairly well this week. Does anyone disagree on Penix coming out and having a solid game? Because he had a terrible game last week. I think people might be afraid to start him.
I think Freifogel is a must start. Penix, I didn't get to watch a lot of that game last week. I just saw some of the clips. Did he look like he was willing to run it all? Because I think that, again, if Levis isn't running, we don't love his upside. I think Penix, it's still, has shown he can throw for 350 yards and 4 touchdowns. But obviously what really gives him some juice there is a little bit of a rushing touchdown, especially upside. With the knee, I don't know.
I'm not sure you can take really anything away from what happened last week against Iowa and the way that they were using him. He barely ran last week. I think he only had like 2 or 3 attempts. But is that a Iowa containing him in the pocket question and just playing good defense, or is that he's not confident in his recovery from the knee injury? And either way, I think he can pass enough to make up for any sort of rushing upside that he lacks this week. Like, I think you almost have to start him based on just the matchup and knowing what we've seen him do in the past. And I'm not worried if the mobility isn't there, the mobility isn't there, right? But how many quarterbacks do you think are better with a softer matchup than Idaho that you really want to start?
This is a week of soft matchup, so it's a tough question to answer specifically. Yeah. There's not a lot of we had to pick. We do 5 games that we pick at the end here. It was very difficult to pick the 5 games that we had to choose because there's just a lot of gaps in talent level here this week.
If you got Michael Penix, I would start Michael Penix if I had Michael Penix. He gets sniped for me. He goes a little early.
All right, so start Michael Penix if you have him, but only blame Chris if he sucks. That's the conclusion we reached on that one. All right, who you got next, Chris?
That's fine. Bryant Koback. I had him last week. He gets Notre Dame this week. I want to. This is a theme of all my guys, right? Like, these are guys who either had bad weeks or you're really on the fence about. So I'm not giving you locked and loaded guys, right? So Bryant Koback goes against Notre Dame. Yeah, I'm not pointing any fingers. But
that felt a little.
I
personal.
can't do it.
I'm not pointing any fingers. But there are people who do that. Anyway, Bryant Koback had an awesome week last week against Notre Dame. We saw how Jashawn Corbett did last week. I think Koback is a good player. The stat that I've been talking about a lot with him this week is in 4 or 6 games last year, he had more than 25 touches. And in the games where they were losing, he had 7 receptions in each playing catch up. I think they're in that role this week. I think Kovacs is a guy that you almost have to start because I think the volume's just going to be there. Even if he isn't efficient, he's locked in for at least 5 catches. And I think you're going to be hard pressed to find a guy with 25 touch upside against a defense that got shredded on the ground last week. And I like Bryant Kovac. He showed that he was good again last week. So it's a tough matchup. I'm fine with it. And
Notre Dame's defense didn't look as overwhelming from a rushing perspective as they did. We'll see. One game again, hard to draw some conclusions, but maybe not as tough as last year.
I also like LD Brown. I think he's the bell cow, and they're going against a Tulsa team that isn't very good. He wasn't super efficient last week. I don't really care. He was involved. He ran the most routes of all the running backs, and he had a handful of targets. I think that he is going to have a monster game against Tulsa. I think 100 yards is definitely not out of the question. I liked him in prize picks too. So I really like LD Brown this week. I think they just didn't. They have it as 4 oars on the depth chart, and so I was surprised that they didn't have more of a distribution. But it was really, really LD Brown's backfield. He really took command and had the most touches. So I think that repeats this week. And Tulsa's not good. So
yes, that also helps. What you got here, Chris? David Bailey?
It's
No.
Colin.
That would be
Oh,
that'd be
all
Mr.
right.
Colin.
All right.
Colin Decker.
Yeah, I took a little bit of flack there on some of my start sits from the Campus Life show this week. They were maybe
I didn't name
they
any
were
names. I named
maybe
no names
not the
whatsoever.
maybe not the deepest names here, but David Bailey is a guy that this week that I'm starting. He had a ton of carries last week, 20 for 48. Not very efficient. He did have a touchdown on the ground. I did like to see a little bit of receiving game work from him too, actually. 3 catches for 23 yards there. So he had a nice week there, but it wasn't very efficient. But they also get a Vanderbilt team this week that just gave up 149 yards rushing to East Tennessee State, they're an FCS school, and they're not like a good one. So I think they're just going to ride David Bailey this week. I wouldn't surprise me if he puts over 100 yards, gets like 2 or 3 touchdowns against them.
Yeah, I actually moved him into some starting lineups this week after having that discussion with you. So thanks, Colin.
You're welcome.
You have
all of
anybody
mine,
else that you like this week?
all of mine maybe aren't terrible. Another guy I like this week here is DeMontre Tuggle. I kind of struggled a little bit last week. 16 carries, 60 yards. 2 catches for 0 yards. But if you got DeMontre Tuggle, you drafted him to start him. They get Duquesne this week. Duquesne gave up 178 yards rushing last week against TCU, and it was not from Zach Evans. It was from like all of the other guys. So, this is not a good team. And, DeMontre Tuggle, he split the backfield a little bit there, but he still had about 60% of the touches there in the backfield. I think that's going to be more than enough to get him over the 20-point mark this week. I think he's going to have a really nice game.
Cool. So
I like
Colin's
Tuggle.
looking at running backs this week. I kind of am as well. This was an opinion I formed before we even found out that JT Daniels is likely out this week with an oblique injury. So now I feel doubly good about this. The Georgia backfield, I know that kind of sounds like an obvious one, but with the way they rotate touches, sometimes you might not feel good about starting some of these guys. I'm firing up, especially Zamir White. I think is just, you plug him in no matter what. But I think if I'm in leagues where maybe I have some questions, it's a difficult decision. I'm thinking about starting Kendall Milton this week too. They play UAB. UAB is just not a great football team. They beat up a little bit on Jacksonville State last week, but Jacksonville State's very not good. Georgia backfield last week against Clemson, they still had 30 carries, over 100 yards. I expect both of those big running backs there to get about at least 80, 85 yards and a touchdown for both of them. So I think if you have some question marks maybe at the running back position, or, you left Reese White on your bench last night or something like that, and you got to get some points here, I would definitely start Zamir White. And then I think Kendall Milton is a sneaky start this week, especially, like I said, Carson Beck, the starter. I think that they really just look to lean on that running game more than they possibly would otherwise. How do you guys feel about beyond that, like James Cook or some of those guys, though? I'm not sure I would start a Cook.
That's just what I was going to ask you too, actually.
Milton.
What?
I'm not sure I would start a Milton. And
Well, screw you too, buddy.
well, listen. So he was 4th in opportunity share last week. Do you think that he gets enough volume? I would rather start James Cook if I had it came down to that decision. I'm not sure I would start Kenny McIntosh over him, but I would start I think I would prefer James Cook. But I don't think you have to start James Cook. I don't know. The only one I really feel confident in is Zamir White. I just don't know how it breaks down. Jared. But I don't know. Kendall Milton is you have to have better running back options than Kendall Milton, right? You got it.
I'm in some leagues, man. I'm telling you. I look at some teams and the running back situation is not great. So I'm looking at my rankings right now and where I have Kendall Milton. I would start Kamani Vidal over him. I would start Zaquandre White over him. I would start Chris Tyree over him. I'm that one.
I start Orem over him. I'm just so scared of Milton this week. I agree with you on Zamir White though. I don't know. I'm a little shy. I feel like there are better options.
It's the game script. That's what and he's
actually
very capable back. So.
To be fair, actually Milton DFS.
So there you go.
So I'm not totally off. I just I feel like you might have better options. Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe your team's really bad and you're in a 24-team league.
Look, there's some people on this show right here that like to draft bad players just so they can cut them later, which also probably means they're not good at drafting good players earlier in the draft. So I have no doubt there's some people who have to start Milton. I think Milton will be fine.
I am not in a situation where I have to start Milton anywhere, Matt. So joke's on you.
I wasn't even saying you. I mean, don't get so offended, Colin. We're just throwing stuff out here into the ether. That's
throwing
all.
a lot of shade in my direction today.
Nobody's
you take 1 week off, and then all of a sudden,
look, Austin was trying to swat a fly earlier, and then I just saw somebody said nobody was saying you. Yeah, it's like there's a thing over here. Ooh, Colin, man, come back with the fire takes after 1 week off. I like it though.
And my other big start this week, I think, is Jordan Whittington, wide receiver at Texas. He is basically, they have Xavier Worthy to play deep there. I don't think they'll use him short on a lot of stuff. And they have Bijan, who they said they want to get at least 20 to 25 touches a game, which is awesome. But Whittington basically functions as the rest of that offense. The guy that when they need to move the chains on anything longer than a 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, they're looking his direction. Last week he had 7 catches, 113 yards, and a touchdown. I think a repeat performance is definitely in the cards this week against Arkansas, especially with Troy O'Meary out there. I think Jordan Whittington can have a really big game this week for Texas. So he is a must start in my opinion. And he's got RB wide receiver eligibility. So I'm starting him in the running back slot in a couple leagues this week.
I love that call. I think he's gonna have a big week.
Yeah. All right, let's flip over to sits here for a few minutes, guys.
Doesn't match up much with my sit, which is Hudson Card. I'm not sure he has, mostly because I don't think he has a massive game today. I mean, last week he was good. He definitely improved as things went on. He actually did pretty good. I think he scored like top 40 at the position last week. I kind of think that probably stays right around this, so I'm not going to go all in on Card. I think I was trying to find a better quarterback to kind of choose to sit. It was just hard for me to pick somebody else. So Card's a guy that I'm sitting this week. And then Austin Jones, and I hate to say this because I love Austin Jones, Stanford, but 9 carries last week for 25 yards. I don't think he's going to do much better against USC today, unfortunately. I think Jones is in for another bad day. I've benched him in all of my lineups, even in the ones I drafted him to be like my RB2 or 3 or a high-end flex play. I just don't think it's gonna work for him right now. So he's made his way to my bench as well.
Stanford was shockingly bad last week.
Yeah.
I'm probably not super interested in anybody on that team until they show me a little something.
I was so excited to put Austin Jones in all my lineups last week. I was like, let's go. No, it was so bad. I went at the end of the game and looked at my 2.8 points, and I was like, why?
So that's a great, and I just want to say real quick, Matt, these first couple of weeks, especially on, the campus side of things, there's really a lot of calibration going on. You're kind of trying to feel out every year, especially in college football is very different. So do not be discouraged if you made really bad decisions last week. Things will become more clear as the year goes on. Don't panic. Chris, Moxley Madness, give us all the sits.
All right.
Over 100 I hear that you have for us. Is that correct? Can you confirm?
Yeah, I do have 100 listed on the sheet, but I'm not sure I'll get to all of them.
Okay.
So
time constraints, yes.
Partially true. Yeah. If we had more time, we could probably go 250, 350 deep. Anyway, I think you sit Will Rogers this week. I think NC State has a good defense. I think Will Rogers had a great week last week, and they have the highest pass rate in the country. So he will attempt a lot of passes. I don't think Will Rogers is particularly good. I think NC State has a solid defense. I think that game may go even under. I don't really like Will Rogers. I think that you saw last week, and I think you probably have better options than him. I'm also sitting Brock Purdy. I'm not sure anybody's actually starting Brock Purdy, but I'm definitely sitting him, if that's the question. I'm also sitting Charles Williams, who had a very solid week with UNLV last week. He just has a much tougher matchup this week against Arizona State. I think that they want to get him involved, and they also want to get Kyle Williams involved. And so I don't really want a piece of that UNLV offense, though. I don't think this is the week to play them. I do think they'll have matchups where you can play them, and they'll be productive players. And I like Charles Williams, but I don't like Charles Williams this week. I think that I think last week he scored 20 plus points. I don't think you're getting probably more than 10 this week, if that. I don't really like Charles Williams. I don't think you're also sitting Ramon Davis. Sorry, Matt. I just don't like him this week. I think that he's going to be.
I'm sitting him too, but I didn't say that out loud. So
I need to see my. I need to see him actually do something. I'm also sitting the Oregon wide receivers, Micah Pittman, Johnny Johnson. They were both pretty good last week, but they are not playing Fresno's secondary. So I'm not particularly interested in them. And I think that they had solid weeks. And if you're questioning about whether or not you plug them in because they were both good, then you do it. You just sit them on the bench. And then that's really the ones that I want to highlight. Guys who had good weeks last week that you probably want to stay away from.
So man, all the shade that I got there. Brock Purdy and Ramon Davis, I believe, were both of my sits on my show too there. So just want to throw that one out. There's a lot of similarities, a lot of overlapping.
I have never shaded you. I have not said shade at Colin. I've never said
wearing shades has never shaded anybody except for himself. So get that straight. All right, Colin, who are you sitting this week?
So I have we did the 10 that we had on the show here. I'll constrain mine to 2. I'm sitting Eric Gray this week. He had 9 carries last week, 27 yards, 1 catch, -6 yards against Tulane in a game that it was a close game pretty much the entire time. Oklahoma ran away with it a little bit in the second quarter, but then, Tulane kind of came back. So it wasn't like they just blew the doors off Tulane and gave carries to other guys. Kennedy Brooks saw the bulk of the work there. They didn't really target the running back too much. So I don't really know what his role is moving forward. I know they get a cupcake this week. But I'm still sitting him. I still don't really trust him. And then my next one is the South Carolina running backs. And the reason I'm sitting the South Carolina running backs is Kevin Harris is likely back this week. And I have no idea what that backfield split looks like. One of these guys is probably going to go off for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. I just have no idea which one it's going to be. Zaquandre Wright, really nice week last week, but Harris is back now. So do they go to Harris? Do they go back to White? Marshawn Lloyd's lingering there too. I think he's the most talented of the 3. I have no idea which one this is going to be this week. So I'm sitting all of them because I don't feel comfortable with that.
Scared money don't make money, Colin. Come on. Get those South Carolina running backs in there. No, I agree. The only name that I put on here, and again, I did 10 on the C2C pod, and I can just throw out a couple of them here, but JSN is a big one that I think you're not starting right now until further notice. We don't know exactly what that offense spread is going to look like moving forward with targets, but there's a very real chance if Stroud plays similar to how he played last week, that's basically a 2-receiver offense akin to the Minnesota Vikings offense, where you really like Stephon Diggs, you really like Adam Thielen, and then you don't really like any of the other options there. The Ohio State offense very well could turn into that this year. So I know you took JSN early, but I'm not starting him right now.
Yeah, I wouldn't start anybody outside of Olave and Wilson until they play their weaker competition. Any of the big games like last week and this week, it's going to be the Wilson Olave show, like as in 90 to 95% of the targets. It's just going to be those 2.
Yeah. All right, guys, let's give some of our predictions here for the week then. We picked 5 games as per usual here. Leading things off, the first game we have Oregon at Ohio State. I guess I am first up here. I am taking Ohio State, but I don't think they cover that 14.5 point spread. I think it's closer than that.
I agree. If you're in our Discord, there was a lot of talk this week about CJ Stroud. He's dealing with a little bit of a shoulder injury. They're saying he's about 85%. I'm a little bit worried about that. Oregon, still a very good defense. I think they'll be able to lock up these receivers for a good amount of the game. I think it's going to be a close game. I'm with Austin. I'm taking them to win, but not cover the 14.
Yeah, I like Ohio State too. I think they actually cover. I think that they're a better team than Oregon is, and I think Oregon had a lot of flaws, and they're missing some key pieces on defense. Kayvon Thibodeau, as far as we've heard, isn't playing this week, and that secondary is pretty beat up. So I think Ohio State looks pretty well, and I think CJ Stroud, he's not 100%, and if he's really that hurt, maybe that doesn't look so good. But they're just a straight up better team. And Oregon, it's a 9:00 start for Oregon. Can't forget the early game for Oregon. But yeah, I like Ohio State a lot.
Rumor that Flo stepped off the team bus in a boot this morning as well. So
Oregon.
I have no confirmation on that.
You and me this week.
If Flo is not playing, I think I would lean more toward with Moxley that they do cover then. But
Colin.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm with all of you guys here too on the Ohio State bandwagon, but I don't think that they cover either. I am worried about that Stroud injury. The running backs, they'll probably split touches pretty evenly there, but I don't know if you're not going to see that huge run from Mayan Williams you saw last week as well. So I'm taking Ohio State, but I wouldn't cover the spread.
All right, Iowa State, another top 25 matchup here. I'm taking Iowa, and I feel pretty good about that. They've been dominant since the beginning of last season. Really, they struggled early, but they've caught on since that. They look like they're going to continue on that this year. I think that they beat up an Iowa State team that struggled last week against Northern Iowa.
I'm going the opposite way. I'm taking Iowa State. It's hard to say I believe in Purdy, but I think that Matt Campbell's going to get this team going. Iowa is a very good defense. They played really good last week, but Iowa State did the same thing last year. They struggled in that first game. They got beat by, I think it was Louisiana, and then they ended up coming on and having a really good season the rest of the year. I think they kind of woke up a little bit with that close game last week. They're going to come together and pull out a win today. Very close game. I expect it to be a very good game as well.
I actually like Iowa this week, and they're 4.5 point dogs, and I like them to win outright, to be honest. I think that they showed the type of team that they have, and I think they're solid all around. I think they bring the country's best defense. And Iowa State always plays poor week one. That's kind of just who Iowa State is. And you're definitely spot on with that, Matt. But I did not like the Cyclones being ranked top 8, and they were that trendy top 4 playoff pick because we got to be different. We can't just put the same 4 teams every time. But no, I think Iowa showed that they are the better team. I think Iowa's one of the best teams in the country, and I'm shocked that it's 4.5. So give me the Hawkeyes.
And then I'll split the difference here as well. I'm gonna go with Iowa State. I'm gonna hop with Matt there.
Go Buckeyes!
Not an
Let's
option.
go.
Not
We're
an
gonna
option.
do
No.
Iowa State. I think that it's going to be a tight game. It's going to be a really good game, but I don't think Indiana is that good. So I'm not that impressed by that win last week. I mean, it was definitely a nice win, but I think that Iowa State is by far a better team than Indiana. I think Iowa State struggled in the opening, but I think they were keeping things pretty vanilla in that game plan. I think they were prepping for this one. They had this one circled.
All right,
Give me Iowa State.
Cal TCU. Colin, you're done. No, I'm just kidding. Cal TCU. I'm taking TCU. Cal didn't look great last week.
Same. I think TCU is the better team. I like that offense. I'm going with the Horned Frogs.
Yeah, I like TCU too. I like them to cover the 11.5 spread. They're just way better.
TCU.
All right, Kentucky, Missouri. I think an underrated game this week should be a good one. I'm taking Kentucky. I think that they're for real this year.
As am I. I'm a little worried about Will Levis, as Moxley mentioned earlier, but I think they are just a little bit better offense with some of the weapons they have on the field, and that will be what ends up winning them the game.
I actually have Mizzou this week, and I'm apparently picking all the underdogs. Mizzou's a 5.5 dog.
Makes sense if you see a record.
Yeah, whatever. I think that they beat Kentucky outright. I think they're just a solid team, and I think Will Levis is. I need to see Will Levis do something, and Mizzou's a tough pass defense. So let's see what happens this week.
I'm with Chris too here. I have Missouri outright. Give me the money line in this one. Kentucky beat up on a bad team, and I was listening to the Cover 3 pod, and they were saying that Kentucky's defense, their secondary was leakier than normal. They did, there were guys running wide open. Like the quarterback on the team just couldn't hit those guys. Basilak's not going to have that problem. Mookie Cooper's not going to have that problem. Give me Missouri.
All right, last one here, Washington, Michigan, the one that Brandon Hay is at. I'm taking Michigan, but I actually don't feel great about it. I think Washington bounces back a little bit and looks better this week than they did in that loss against Montana.
I took that team up north, but if more I think about it, I actually think Washington's going to pull the upset today. And I wish I would have had the balls to pick it, but I picked Michigan. So I'm going to go to 9-2 on the season after today. I just feel it, or whatever, plus the wins, but.
Yeah, I like Michigan as well. I think that they probably win, but I do think Washington bounces back, and the spread's 7, so I actually think Washington might cover that. I think that loss of Ronnie Bell to the offense is fairly significant, So I think they might struggle this week. But Washington they're not that bad. They're not as bad as they were last week.
They're not as bad as they were last week, but that's such a vanilla offense. Dylan Morris, not particularly good. I don't think he's long for the starting role. Give me Michigan here. I just don't think that's a very good offense. I think that they're way too conservative, and it pains me to take Michigan here, but I think Michigan's the better team, and I think they cover too. I'm not impressed by Washington at all.
Alrighty, guys. So those are our picks for this week. Some start sits. We've got another hour of the tailgate coming to you here, covering some DFS and betting lineups. Let's get Will in here. Will, how we doing this morning, man? How's it going?
Man, listen. If I was doing any better, there'd be two of me. Traveling this weekend, but still I got obligations. So, got to take the stream where I got to. Was fortunate enough to wake up this morning 2-0. Had to dig deep after last week's debacle last week. So last night took UTEP over 56.5. They covered that. Actually, they almost covered that before halftime, which was pretty crazy. So again, I don't care if it was a 60-0 or 33 to 27. As long as they covered, and then I got close to Carolina first half 22.5. In the first half, so they were able to score 28 points to go into the half. So, waking up pretty early at 2-0. Feeling pretty good. Got a couple more games on the slate for today. Feeling pretty good. How you guys doing?
We're all doing great. And that's good to hear that we're rebounding here this week. Looking forward to bringing you the second hour. Matt and Colin, thanks again for joining us for the first hour.
Thanks, guys. Have fun.
I am Alfred here for the second hour, but I will not be giving any advice because that is borderline malpractice. So I will just be kicking it over to Will and to Chris for the majority of this show.
Okay.
I think we're going to have a good one here, though, guys, regardless. So let's hop right into this. Unless, do you guys have any comments on what happened in this previous hour, Chris, now that we've got the crazy people out of here?
No, I listen, if you're playing in 5 or 6 man leagues, maybe 4 to 16 leagues, Colin is the perfect start sit guy for you.
I hope he's in the background. He's still here. Any rebuttal?
I'm still here. Like I said, there were some overlapping picks on start sits for my starts and my sits on this show. So
are you starting Kyron Williams this week? They're 16-point favorites against Toledo. You think he's going to get enough work?
I'm gonna go away now.
All right, bye, Colin. All righty, guys. So let's hop right in here. Let's start off the show. Changes from Thursday's preview. What do we've got here? Who wants to take this one?
Sure. I'll talk about it because I wrote the big slate preview, and I think a lot of things have changed based on news that we're getting out and stuff that we've heard, and so I think one thing that's big is the CJ Stroud. If he's not totally healthy, I'm kind of off of him. I really liked him because there aren't a lot of quarterbacks on the slate that I think are super safe, right? I think the safest one is honestly Kenny Pickett. And I don't really like saying that out loud, but I think that he's going to have a really solid game, but I'm not sure he has like a tournament winning upside. I thought Stroud did. Apparently he's dealing with a bad shoulder injury now. And if he's 85%, like Matt said, I'm not that crazy about him. So I think that there is an opportunity, and this is a tournament play, not necessarily a cash play, to go away from quarterback in your super flex spot, which is not something like I really ever recommend. But if you were to ever pull it off, this is the week. So the top roster guys are going to be guys like probably Kenny Pickett, maybe Emory Jones. I mean, it gets gross after maybe Max Duggan. Like, I don't really like any of those options. So I am okay plugging in a guy like, Jahan Dotson into my flex and saying, okay, I think Dotson gets 100 and a touchdown. That's 19 points. And I'm not sure you can really get 19 points out of a lot of quarterbacks. And you get savings elsewhere. You get a $2,000 savings, and you can pay up for a Kyron Williams, and you can pay up for Isaiah Spiller, and you can pay up for Breece Hall if you really want to go there in a tough matchup. But the 2 quarterback build doesn't have to exist this week. And I think that's a huge I think it's a really different way to get contrarian in tournaments. And that's really because I don't really like the quarterbacks. You could just get value elsewhere. You can play Olave and you play Garrett Wilson if you want to. So there's just a lot of other options. I think this is a week to get different. And the other thing, and I think I brought this up briefly, and I believe it even more so now, is you don't have to. So the budget usually, especially on DraftKings, is 50,000. So you stay within that limit, right? I don't think you have to spend 50,000 this week. I think you can spend like 48,000. I think you can get a little savings, and maybe 48's aggressive, but like 48.5, 49, and it's weird to say because you want to really play the best players. But if you're going to do it, this is a week I think that you can pull that off and be different and just say, I'm paying down for Noah Cain. Noah Cain's $1,000 cheaper than a lot of the other top running backs on the slate, and I think he's better play. So this is a week to get different, I think.
That's a good point that you bring up, because I always get myself into trouble with that, just trying to cap out at the salary limit. So not only with football, but also with basketball, I always find myself getting into trouble, and then coming to find out when you look at the winners, they didn't even spend the total amount. So that's a great point. That's something that people should definitely look at. What do you think on the quarterbacks for Oklahoma State and Tennessee?
So I'm not crazy about Joe Milton this week, and I really liked Spencer Sanders until I realized that he was missing like 4 of his wide receivers. So that's
right.
A really good point to bring up. So they're missing Braden Johnson. They're missing their tight end Logan Carter. It sounds like Tay Martin might not play. I mean, I like Spencer Sanders, and I think what we like about Spencer Sanders is that he has some of that rushing upside, but I don't like that he's missing all those receiving options as well. I think that's a little dicey. I actually really liked him as a salary saving play until some of that news started breaking this morning that they might be out without some of those key guys. But I do think, and that's a good point, that it opens up to get like really, really cheap options in that Oklahoma State receiving game if they are out. So a guy that I've really gravitated towards because of that is Braden Green or Braylon Green, whatever Green it is for Oklahoma State. He actually ran a ton of routes last week and was fairly confident. Bryson Green, I knew I'd get it at some point, but he was 3 for 41, and he actually ran the second most routes and had 7 targets. He's only 3,300. If they're missing a ton of receiving options, I really like him at that price. I think it's a great salary saving play.
Well, here's the thing. I think CJ Stroud is expensive. He's right now at 8,600, but I just think that with what the performance that he put up last week and going up against an Oregon State team that didn't pretty much perform as they usually do, putting up points, I think that this is going to be a track meet. The over-under right now is set at 65, so I think he's a good play, even though he's pretty expensive. And I just love the stack between him and Olave.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. So I think it's going to be a good stack between those guys, even though they're expensive.
Yeah, and Garrett Wilson, I think, is almost a must play, right? He's 4,900. He's 1,800 cheaper than Olave, which is crazy. They just mispriced him on the slate. He had 11 targets last week. He just completely mispriced. I think he's going to be in probably every lineup because of it. But I almost think you have to play him because, I mean, he has 3 or 4x potential. And, I mean, if you're wrong on Garrett Wilson this week, then I think that's a good way to sink your lineup because everyone else is going to have him.
So let me ask you this. Would you also stack Williams in that lineup?
Mine Williams?
Yeah.
Probably not. I'm not sure what I'm not really confident in that backfield split as much. I think that they like to I think they're going to want to mix it around some. They want to get Master Teague involved. I don't know why, but they do.
Yeah, I mean, after Williams' performance last week, I just think, you pretty much just tell Teague to probably take a look or take a nice little gander at the transfer portal and go from there.
Yeah, I think the issue that I have with Williams is his price. If he was like $1,000 cheaper, I'd be more in. But Isaiah Spiller's cheaper than him. He's the exact same price, or he's at that $100 more than Kyron Williams. Noah Cain's a huge $900 cheaper. Jabari Small, who I'm definitely going to play this week because Tyon Evans is out. Like all those, it's not really a Mine Williams issue as much as it's more of I just think they're better, cheaper options.
And Tyon Evans was just confirmed out for anybody that missed that. I saw that news about 5 minutes ago. So yes, Jabari Small is probably locked in there as the guy this week.
And that's really important for our Bills this week because he's 5,800, and I think he could have like 25 to 30 touch upside this week. Pitt's run defense is good. Don't get me wrong. And I think, Austin, you can speak to that probably better than I can. But do you like Small in this matchup, knowing what you know about Pitt?
I do. I think our rush defense is not as strong this year. The pass defense will still probably be pretty decent, but definitely, I mean, you can't lose that many guys to the draft in 1 year. And you know, they've got a lot of really talented freshmen, but not there yet.
Agree with that.
Any other guys that, you know, we're now on or off that maybe we weren't earlier in the week, or did we kind of cover the majority of those?
I think for me, we touched on that. So I'm interested in Kenny Pickett as a stable quarterback option. Like, I think he's gonna have like 20 to 25 points. Like, I think he's going to be fairly solid. And I mean, there's just not a lot of quarterbacks I can say that about. I don't know if you were listening, Will, when we were talking about it, but I mean, I've been on Stroud all week, but I'm a little worried about that shoulder injury that he apparently has. So, do you stick with him because you just hope he throws it like 10 yards within the line of scrimmage, and Garrett Wilson, Trayvon Henderson, the million of weapons they have, they take it to the house? Like, I mean, I think that's still in play. I'm not really.
I just think that any questions that anyone had about Stroud was answered last week, and he held his own. So I think that he comes into this game, you know, and especially they're playing at home, right? Like I said, I think that they're going to have to put up points against Oregon. So it's going to be a situation where, you know, he came out early. He was probably like in shock, you know, big stage, first college game ever on prime time. But now it's just like, okay, we're playing the 11 o'clock game. We're good to go. So it's going to be, I think he's going to come into his own. I could actually see him throwing for like 300 yards today.
Yeah. So Justin Flo was just confirmed. Well, not confirmed. Brady Quinn on the coverage said that he won't be able to go today. So that might put Mayan Williams back a little bit more in play for me, and just hope that he gets the majority of those touches. I also think that, you know, I think that's Ohio State, man. I just think they're going to pile on some points today, man. That's a good the Kayvon Thibodeau's not going to play. I mean, that Oregon defense is beat up right now. So I don't hate Mayan Williams now that we have that confirmation. So I might play a little bit of him as well.
So you're going with the three? You like the 3-player stack?
I'm not sure I'll play Stroud and I'll play Williams in the same lineup, but I'm fine playing Garrett Wilson and Williams.
Okay.
That's a lot of salary committed to those guys, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think that especially in some tournaments, you just can't get too cute and get too fancy. I mean, you just got to go straight for the win, you know. But definitely, I understand as trying to be contrarian in some instances.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, we'll keep the injury news, especially coming here, guys, as that breaks during some warm-ups here. Additional lines we like for today, guys. You know, you've already discussed some of them this week on the variety of different shows and articles and things that you guys have been pumping out. But what lines do we like for today?
So, well, now I'm in on Ohio State 14.5. If you can still get Ohio State 14.5 right now, you got to take it.
I'm on it. Thanks, Chris. I'm on it. Doing it now.
So Justin Flo being out, it sounds like Kayvon Thibodeau isn't going to play. They're missing a ton of pieces in their secondary, and Anthony Brown's not a good quarterback. I don't understand how they really keep up. I might go. Do you know what the Ohio State team total is?
Yeah, it's 65. It's set at 65 right now. Oh, 65. Team total. I'm sorry. Let me. No, my bad. That's the over under. Let me look now. Yeah. But let's touch on this game. You know what? Auburn last week surprised me. They were a 60-10 win at Akron. They're playing Alabama State today. The spread is at 49.5. I think I'm going to go with Auburn today. I think I will go with Auburn to cover that.
I like that. I like that as well.
And Ohio State, actually, you know what? Ohio State total points for the game is 38.5. I think they hit that easily. I think they probably hit that in the third quarter. I mean, way in the third quarter, in my opinion. It's just something. Again, if you look at the team, they're playing at home, and the fact that they're going to have to be able to keep up, where Oregon's going to have to compete with them offensively. I think that they hit that easily.
I like that. So our plays in the Ohio State game. Are you in on the 14.5? You can still get it.
Yeah, it's actually, you know what? It's at 15.5 right now on FanDuel.
I
So
still would take that.
yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? I might even take them as high as 16.5. I could
Yeah.
probably even take them up at 16.5.
I think it will get to 20 by the time the game kicks off as it adjusts. But if you can get it, I think that's a good point. If you can get it at 16.5 or lower, you're taking it.
Also, think about this. You could put in a little teaser. You could actually give a little point there to get a little extra back if you want to pull them into a little parlay and get an extra, get those odds up as well. So keep that in mind. That'd be a good play as well.
I like that. I think there's a lot of plays that we really like in that game. All on the Ohio State side.
Florida and South Florida. I think this can. Florida right now at minus 28.5. I think that's going to be pretty easy for them to go ahead and just take care of business down there.
Yeah, that USF team didn't score at all last week. They got
45-0. Yeah,
they got shut out by NC State. Do you like the South Florida team total under?
So I just have an issue, honestly, touching the unders on game, because then what happens is I just spend all the time looking at the bottom right hand side of the TV, and I'm just hoping for the tick 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 tick, and I'll get mad at every injury, every penalty because the clock stops. So, yeah, right now, I do like the Florida total. If you look at Florida over 42.5, I think that's a better play as opposed to the USF under, just for the simple fact that I think Florida's going to put up some points. You saw what NC State was able to do, and I think Florida's a much better team than NC State. So in-state rival, why not? I would take it. That's another good play that I think that if you want to go ahead and parlay them with Ohio State, especially since they're playing at the same time, and then you could reap the benefits early and turn that into the early afternoon games and late night games as well.
No, I like that move. So one game that I'll add is, I think we're all on Iowa 4.5. I like the Iowa State under at 46. So that has gone. I think Alfred's not here, but we have a little chat that we have with all of us, and we find some nuggets. We send them to each other. I think the stat that I had about Iowa last week, Iowa State, was that game has gone under in 13 of the last 15 contests between the two. 46. I don't think either of those teams are particularly prolific offensively. I think they both have really good defenses. I still kind of like that. I'm not sure if it's fallen since I've looked last, but I'm on Iowa, and I think I like the under there.
So I'm on the same boat. I am on all over Iowa. I think we all agreed on that. It's kind of concerning because it comes into play that Clemson and UGA game last week. I mean, we're like, hey, this under is too low, and they didn't even come close to it at all. Now it did drop to 46 now. The only thing that concerns me about that under is this: since they do have good defenses, let's say they get good field position, and then now you're in a case where you could get an easy field goal or a touchdown to hit that 46. If it was at, like, let's say 48, 49, I feel more confident, but 46 is just like borderline, I don't know.
That's a good point. I think
because if you look at the stat line last week, I mean, it's not like Iowa did a whole lot against, offensively against Indiana. It was that defense that put them in great field position, and then he took advantage, obviously. So I could see them again with both teams having a good defense. I could see that happening today, and so that's why I may stay away from the under. But I think that Iowa plus 4.5 is a great play in my opinion. Great play.
Yeah. So another under I like, and I am still taking the under. Not sure how low I'll take it, but Navy Air Force under 41. I don't care. I'm taking it. Those teams are terrible. These service academy games, 38, 9-1 for the under.
Nah, I am in agreement. I am in agreement with you on that. I am in agreement with you on that because that's just going to be. I don't think there's going to be a lot of attempts through the air in this game from either team. So I think I could see that. I could definitely see that under in that one. Now let me flip it.
Okay.
to this game. North Texas against SMU over 73.5.
Oh man, 73. So I love both those offenses. I don't think those defenses are particularly good.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I love Tanner Mordecai this week for fantasy purposes. I think that he's a very solid game. I think I'm not really sure that we saw what Texas or North Texas offenses can do last week. I think that they still have more to show, and I think that they could unleash a guy like Jair Shorter, who I know Austin really likes Jair Shorter, but I'm not really sure what's going on with him. He didn't play much last week, but if they get him involved, I mean, I think we could see a gigantic total. I'm not sure I'll touch it. 73 is high, but I understand the logic to get there, so I don't hate it.
Yeah, I just think that like both of those offenses, when they come out, they're looking to air it out. I just think that it could have definitely hit. But that'd be like something that'd be a good sweat at the very least, because I definitely think that they could definitely get to at least 70 points easily, at least.
Yeah. No, I like that. So a game that we talked about earlier on in the first hour was the Missouri-Kentucky game. So I actually ended up taking Missouri 5.5. I don't know if you have a play that you like in that game or if you are staying away from it.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna have to go with Kentucky, just for the simple fact that they're at home, and Kentucky does they look pretty good last week again. Louisiana Monroe, but it was still an impressive win at 45-10, and I just got to go with Kentucky again. The only reason is because they're playing at home. So I think that will they cover the spread? Don't know, but that may be a money line play. That may be a money line play for me, because a 5.5 may be a little too much. But I do like the money line on that game right there.
Yeah, I picked Mizzou because I think Missouri's deep. I don't think Will Levis is a particularly solid quarterback, so I'm willing to play the Mizzou money line as well. But I like Mizzou 5.5. I think that they can shut down the passing game. And
so you think Mizzou's going to come out with the win?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I think Mizzou's
Nice.
a better team. I think Mizzou's a very underrated team in the SEC, and I think Kentucky's good, but I don't think Kentucky's as good as they've been the past couple of years. I think this Kentucky team is not quite as solid. I think there's a couple of holes. I think we talked about it, earlier in the show. We were talking that they had some things they need to clean up on defense, and I think Connor Bazelak's okay. We saw Tyler Batty go insane last week, over 200 yards. I think Mizzou could pull out the win, and I'm surprised it's not closer to a pick 'em. I think 5.5 is giving Kentucky a lot of credit, and so
yeah, 3.5 would have been a play for me. Again, yeah, the 5.5 is too big. So if I was to do that, I would take Mizzou at plus 5.5, but I would take Kentucky at the money line.
Yeah, no,
and just one aspect of that game that we haven't talked about at all. We talked about, especially in the first hour, Missouri's pass defense being pretty darn solid. I don't know how good their rush defense is though, and I think Kentucky can certainly try to get back to a little more of their traditional ground and pound there with Chris Rodriguez. I mean, Mizzou gave up 175 yards on the ground last week, I believe. I mean, I think that's definitely an area that Kentucky can shorten that game a little bit if they need to, and they can exploit a little bit.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. I'm actually more excited for that game than I think I am for a lot of games, because that's actually a competitive matchup, like we were talking about earlier, right? How many competitive matchups are there on this slate? It's a bunch of like Norfolk State versus a P5 school.
Versus
the Monstars, yeah. I mean, that's basically every single game this week.
Yeah.
So let me throw in a wild card here. If Melton starts for Florida State, I actually like Florida State over total points at 41.5.
Yeah, I like that. I actually like the entire Florida State offense this week. I think that they're going to be very solid. I think Milton should start. Has news come out that he is not starting, or one way or the other?
So it hasn't, and that's surprising, because I think you saw all that you needed to see from him coming in. First of all, I don't know why he didn't start last week, but I think he answered all the questions that needed to be answered when he came in, brought the team back, and even put him in a position to win. Had that field goal or go into another overtime possibly. But he did everything that he had to do, and then also he's proven when he was at UCF. Before that horrible injury that he had, but I think he's all the way back. So if you don't start him, then I think that's a self-sabotage.
Yeah, no, I like that call. Any other games that you really feel confident about? Do you want to call out?
Let's see here. You know what? And this may be a trap for me, but give me Michigan -6.5 against Washington.
See, I saw you post in the chat when I brought that up earlier today. I like Washington in that game because I think it is a trap. I think not that it's a trap necessarily for Michigan, but I think it's discounting Washington. They were bad, like really, really bad last week.
Mhm.
There's no other way around it. And I think Colin said that they just have a very unimaginative offense. Like it's just so simple. And I'm not a big fan of really a lot of pieces in that offense just aren't looking good right now. But what I brought up earlier was the loss of Ronnie Bell. I think that plays big. I think Michigan's offense is going to struggle not playing Western Michigan this week. And I think Washington has pretty good defense. So I'm on the other side of that one, but I could just be a sucker for it because I don't think Washington's as good as they are. One game that I really like that I don't think we've talked about anywhere so far is the Army Western Kentucky game. I like the over in that game. It's at 52. And I think Army's probably going to win. I'm not as confident playing I think the spread 6.5. So I'm probably not touching that one. But I really like the over. I think that both teams can probably go down the field just back and forth with each other. I don't think either defense. I think West Kentucky leaves a lot to be desired on defense. I think Army's defense is okay, but their issues are really in the secondary more so. And they can obviously stop the run because, they have one of the best rush defenses in the country last year. And they played, a lot of triple option teams. So they're clearly good at stopping the run. But I think Zappy could have an okay game. And I just think that game goes over. I think 52 is a little low for even though it's Service Academy.
I like that. I like that play. Now, for the late night game, Stanford at USC, and I think that USC this -17, I think is spot on, and I actually wouldn't mind USC taking USC in this spot. Stanford did not look good at all against Kansas State last week, only putting up 7 points. So I think that it's a case where they could go ahead and cover that. Again, USC is playing at home. Is Slovis the guy? Is Slovis the guy? Is this his year to prove to everyone that he's a guy? And also, is USC back?
Austin, is USC back?
Was USC? It's been a long time since USC was here, right? It's almost to the point where you can't say, are they back anymore?
Yeah. We're looking at over a decade. But listen, you have to like what you saw from Slovis last week, right? He went 25 for 36, 263 yards with 2 touchdowns, and Drake London had 13 receptions for 144 yards. I don't see Stanford having a chance. Like I said, I was not impressed at all last week when they played Kansas State, and I just think that USC is trying to make a comeback, and they have to because that coach is on his last leg as well out there, so he has to win as many conference games and as many games total this year to be able to come back, in my opinion.
It's a crazy efficient passing attack. They won't struggle until they find a team that can match up with them there. I don't think Stanford is that team.
Exactly.
So, that's how I feel about that matchup personally.
No, I agree. So what was your play in that, Will?
USC -17.
Yeah, I like that as well. Is USC a better team than San Jose State? Because it's almost the same spread, right? It's 16.5 last week.
It was 13.5.
Oh yeah,
because I remember they didn't kick that field goal when they were in the red zone, and I could have just like broke all the TVs that I was around. But I think USC takes care of business. They got a lot of history between Stanford. These guys are if you want to say rivals, right? I think you could take it there, but then also the fact that USC had a definitely a very impressive week last week. I didn't think they had a chance, and I almost took San Jose State as well on the money line. So the fact that they were able to do it, I mean, their defense was pretty impressive. San Jose State wasn't able to do anything. I don't think Stanford's going to fare any better this week.
I agree with that. I actually really like that play. That wasn't on my board, but I think I'm going to add it.
These are things. So the late night games. Here's how it is. I look at how I'm doing for the day. I look at the Pac-12 at the end of the night and see where I'm at. If I need to catch up, might have to sprinkle something on these games. So we'll see that. And then Hawaii, we'll see. They're only playing. They're playing at 10 o'clock. So my thing after week 0 was if they're not playing after 11 o'clock p.m., I'm not going to take them. And that's Central Time, so I'm not gonna touch them this week either.
So let's shift over real quick to some injury talk, player talk, kind of like what late breaking information. Austin, what you got for us?
Yeah, so just kind of poking around on Twitter here and letting the masters do their work here. Couple quick notes. Zeb Noland is expected to start a quarterback again today for South Carolina. I know there were some rumors that maybe Luke Doty would be back. Does not appear to be the case, at least judging on warmups here. And Jeff Sims, the quarterback from Georgia Tech, is warming up with the second team. It looks like Yates is getting the first team look this week. So maybe an offense that we just want to fade until we have some more information there.
Yeah, no, that's so it is a good matchup for them against Kennesaw State. They should win that easily.
In theory, so was NIU though. So
NIU isn't that bad, but yeah, I agree. So that's interesting. That's really interesting information. So the other one that I saw earlier was that it looks like Chris Autman-Bell is going to play. He's warming up and he's on the field, and there were questions about his availability. He didn't play last week, and he was dressed, but I don't think he warmed up. So if Autman-Bell plays, and Minnesota's not one of our games in the DFS, so this is more of a just injury question in general. If he plays, do you play him? I think yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah, I would definitely have to play him. Definitely have to play him in there. I tell you what, man, you're gonna have to start sending me your lineups. To be honest with you, man, you're gonna have to definitely send because I'm not, after last night's lineup that I put in there, there was a couple of plays that I could have done differently in that super flex position. So we're definitely gonna have to link up on and combine minds on these lineups coming up. Definitely.
Yeah, no, we that Friday night slate, man, it'll get you. I don't even know how these teams, but no, I think with the slate today, there's a lot of ways to get different. And so, does Zeb Noland affect the slate in terms of what happens in that EC or the ECU Carolina game? I don't think so. I already like Holton Allers. I was already kind of playing him. I think he's one of the better discount quarterbacks. But I'm not really interested in the Carolina weapons still. I don't think that I want to play Kevin Harris. I don't think I want to play Zaquandre Wright. I'm not really rushing to plug in Marshawn Lloyd. I think it's going to be a 40-40-20 split. I think Juju McDowell might even get 10% of that work. I think that they just want to run the ball. I'm expecting them to have 220 rushing yards today, 250 rushing yards today. I have no idea who's going to get it. I have no idea where it's going to come from. So my advice, and it's been my advice all week about the Carolina's game, is I'm not touching South Carolina's offense, but I will play ECU's offense because I think it's more predictable. I think Tyler Snead's going to have a role. I think Holton Allers is going to have a role. I'm probably staying away from the running backs. I don't know what the split is going to look like. It was a 14-11 touch split last week, but is Keaton Mitchell the passing down guy? Are they going to even be down? South Carolina's a favorite, but I am a South Carolina fan. I've lived through these losses. I know this is a loss for South Carolina today. Like, I feel that in my bones, and everybody's picking them. And I'm like, y'all haven't been through the struggle that I've been through, South Carolina. And so you
don't like them to win.
I will not pick. I will never pick them. I've just been hurt too many times.
Okay.
I don't need to lose money on them after being emotionally scarred by the Gamecocks. But that's probably a personal problem more than it is a rational thinking problem. I'm just jaded, man. Do you have a play in that game? Do you like the Gamecocks to cover? I think the spread's 2 for.
Yeah, it's at 2.5. It's at 2.5 right now.
Who opened as the
You
dog?
know what? To beat East Carolina. East Carolina is a plus 2.5. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I like South Carolina to cover that actually. I really do. But you may have more insight than I do on this game. I'm gonna have to definitely take another look at it and see. It's coming. It's right around the corner. But 2.5. I mean, I think it's just right there. It's a nice little sweet spot. It's not 3. It's not 3.5. So 2.5 is like pretty much a coin flip, right? Could go anybody's way. But the fact that they're playing away, I guess you could say, but still in the Carolinas, as you said, ECU is getting 3 points, right? So if they were playing at in NC State, I'm sorry, South Carolina, then it would be what 5.5 spread for them.
Yeah, Williams-Brice is a tough place to play. So I think if the Gamecocks were home, it'd probably be 4 to 5.5 maybe.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean the home team usually gets like 3 points, so
yeah,
it's one of those things where this is again this is a game that I didn't even really like. If you look at the slate, there was a lot of other games that I found that were more appealing, and this game could be pretty much a toss up, and even the spread shows that is an indicator being minus 2.5.
Yeah. Any other plays you want to talk about before we move on?
I know we talked about this on the 3 and Out show. Rutgers and Syracuse. I think that's gonna be a good game, and I like Syracuse chances in there. I like Syracuse right there to get the win. They're a dog. They're plus 2.5. So I like Syracuse. They surprised me last week. I wasn't too impressed with Rutgers because again they're playing Temple. It's like, hey, whatever. I got to see how Temple does today to see if it was a Rutgers team or is just a poor Temple showing from them.
I think it was Temple for sure. I like this play as well. It's one of my picks for our 3 and Out, which we record every Wednesday and is released on Friday, so you can catch that. But
Austin, I see you smiling over there. What's your thoughts on that?
This Virginia game already is just a total blowout. They're crushing Illinois right now. I spoke a little bit in the earlier part of this show that Brennan Armstrong, I felt really good about that 288.5 pass yard under. He's at like 180 already at halftime.
Maybe he gets pulled.
So that's fingers crossed. I mean, it's like, what is it? It's 14. Is that the score right now? It's 14-0 with 38 seconds left in the first quarter. So,
not worried, man. Not worried.
Not sweating yet. One other news note that I wanted to toss out there. Javarius Johnson, wide receiver for Auburn, is out today. So Kobe Hudson is expected to start there. So I don't know how much that impacts for anybody, but just another injury there.
Is Elijah Canyon dead?
I guess I've heard nothing about him.
I
don't know what happened there.
I think, but I think whoever's at those skill positions, I just think that Bo Nix is going to get it done. Again, they're playing Alabama State. The spread is just very lofty. They're pretty much, you could even swap out Alabama State for UConn. We all are off UConn for the rest of the year. At least I know I am. So I could definitely see them pulling up another performance as they did last week against Akron.
No, I think that's a good point. So to wrap up, I think I want to go into how I think the slate is going to play out. So we talked about who we're on and who we're off. And I think conceptually, right, like player-wise, I think I feel good about our strategy. But in terms of roster building, here's the difference. So I think Garrett Wilson and Isaiah Spiller are chalk this week. I think they're chalk that you have to eat. I think you just say, okay, fine, I'm going to eat the chalk on Garrett Wilson because he's 5,900. I'm going to eat the chalk on Isaiah Spiller. He's 6,700. They're just mispriced on the slate is the bottom line. And I don't think you can get away from them. I think you can, if you're mass entering into a tournament, you can get away with avoiding those two in a couple lineups and saying, I'm just going to bet that they don't have a great game. I'm going to bet CJ Stroud struggles and, Olave gets a ton of work or Jeremy Rucker gets a ton of work or Jackson Smith and Jigba is apparently gonna run a bunch of routes and have a lot of work. I don't know how likely that is, so I'm not betting on it, but I do think that there is a good contrarian play to get different that way. So I think that those two don't have to be in all your lineups, even though they're priced extremely well. The second thing is I think Toledo is going to be low rostered, and I kind of like that. So I brought Brian Koback up earlier in the first hour, and I actually really like Brian Koback again this week in DFS. So the stat, and I've said the stat all week, and I will repeat it until this game kicks off. Koback will have 25 plus touches this week. He does it in almost every game, and especially when they're trailing. 7 receptions in the games they lost last year when they're playing catch up. It's Koback time. He is priced 6,500 on this slate, and I think that he will come in low owned because Notre Dame is a difficult matchup. But
are they though? You know, because I wasn't impressed last week. I was not impressed last week with Notre Dame. So I think that's actually a great play at 6,500. He's going to get the production and he's going to get the yards. I mean, I was not impressed at all with Notre Dame's defense. You know, especially for what they're known for in years past. I think they're lacking, especially like that Florida State game. There's no way they should have gotten in the 30s at all. There's no way. There's no reason why they should have gotten in the 30s. So I'm all in on the Kovac play. I think that he's going to get the production, especially if they're going to have to turn him if they fall behind, which I can see them doing early on, and then from there. But that's a great play at 6,500. Why not?
Yeah, I'm in on Kovac this week. The other question is how we handle the that's good. So that's a good point, Austin, in our chat. Jaden Bray and the Oklahoma State offense. So Jaden Bray he's a freshman this year. Is he a redshirt freshman? True freshman. Freshman. Explosive player. I think that he wasn't super involved last week, but I think with all the injuries that they're having on offense, that he could be a very contrarian option. I think that's a really good call out. So I brought up earlier that I'm willing to play some of the secondary options there with, a lot of the wide receivers are just missing. They don't have a big depth chart. I think that they want to get Spencer Sanders some action quickly. I think they want to really break him in. So right now, Jaden Bray is 3,700. I kind of like that. Cheaper than 4,000. I think that he probably gets maybe second or third most snaps on that team. With Tay Martin possibly out, Johnson already ruled out. I think that's a good call. Austin's a non-DFS guy, giving us some solid DFS.
He went 2 for 52 last week. Had 2 big catches, including a couple touchdowns in their spring game. I think this is being slightly telegraphed, and it's the boundary guys that are out this week. So again, I am not a DFS expert. I am just picking out injuries here as we're moving along through the show, but Bray is one that kind of stands out that could do something if you need just a cheap option.
No, I really like that. Yeah, I like both. I like the cheap options on the Oklahoma State passing game. I think that that's a good way to get value on a high team total on this slate. I think that's a good call out.
Yeah, 3,700 is good. Yeah. Just real quick. Yeah, for Bray for 3,700. I mean, especially like I said, depending on what contest you're in, he just makes a perfect. He's a sneaky play at either the flex or the super flex position.
Yeah. No, I like that. Look at you, Austin. Just starring.
Yeah.
So I'll pose this to both of y'all because I think that it's more of a team question than it is necessarily a DFS question. So can Ball State put up points this week at all?
I don't think so, because I don't think Penn State gets far enough ahead that's like, they just go into a shell. Like, I don't think they win by, 25 or 30. I don't think their offense is capable of that. So I don't think that they do put up a big week.
Do you think so? Johannes Tyler, who is the clear second option there, and there's like a 40-30 split between him and Hall. They're just both super involved. Tyler's 4,000, which is really cheap for a 2 in a game that there's probably in their game script favorite. You don't think he's any shot, or just low odds basically?
I think it's low odds, but
Justin
that
Hall.
cheap. I don't know why not. Yeah. Go ahead, Will.
So now I'm scared of Hall. You like him at priced up?
Yeah, I would take Hall, but that's like pretty much the only player that I would touch on Ball State. I just don't think that Penn State. mm, Again, from what I saw last week, I'm not impressed with their defense. And I think that Ball State could get in some spots where they could get some big plays and he could eat off there. So
I hope so. That Wisconsin offense was so bad. I don't
see,
even
that's
know.
what I'm saying, right? I mean, yeah,
Is it really
when I watched the game, it was more so Wisconsin
just
offense as opposed to Penn State's defense. So
yeah.
it's
I
not
mean, I think
something that they came out.
it's a very good unit. Like, don't get me wrong, they're like a probably top 10 defense in the country. But can Drew Plitt put up? If Drew Plitt can put up like 150 yards, that puts maybe a receiver in play. It doesn't take that much, right? Like they're not expensive options on this slate, and I think they're going to be very contrarian. So I don't think it's crazy. Do we have any interest in the Oregon guys? Really anyone on that team? Because they'll be low rostered as well because they're the big dog in that matchup. And I mean, I don't think there's a lot of confidence in Anthony Brown. That backfield splits almost 50-50 between Ty and Verdell. Micah Pittman had a big week. Johnny Johnson had a big week. Chris Hudson, who I had never heard of, but was a freshman last year, ran the most routes. He's 3,200. I think he's the only player on the Oregon team I like. Do you have anyone that you want to potentially target there, considering that they will be contrarian?
Yeah, no, I'm not touching anybody on the Oregon team. I'm not touching anyone on there. I just think that there's so many other plays on other teams and in other games that I would rather touch than Oregon. Last week, I thought, because that's a game that I put on the slate for it to go over. They didn't even come close to it. In the first half, they didn't do anything whatsoever, and then the second half, they showed up a little bit. But I just think that if you're looking at the slate of games, there's other players and other teams that you may want to look at as opposed to Oregon.
No, I agree with that. I think the only option is Chris Hudson, who is priced extremely, extremely cheap. And that's the only reason I like him, because he's on the field a ton.
So that play may be good because I could see Ohio State getting like a 2 to 3 touchdown lead, and then you got to abandon your initial game plan and just try to keep up with them, because we saw what Minnesota was able to do last week. They were able to put up points as well, right? So it may be a play where they could come out and some of those players can, but again, if you're giving me the option of picking players from all the teams on the slate, Oregon's going to be the last team I look at, honestly.
I don't think that's a bad approach. So we talked about the Georgia backfield on the first hour as well, and Austin's starting all of them. In seasonal.
I'm not starting Kenny McIntosh, but I mean,
sorry,
Milton White, I'm starting.
Sorry. So Kendall Milton is a guy that I like. He's 3,200. I'm not sure I'm rostering him or starting him in like a CFF league, but 3,200, huge favorites against UAB. They might want to get him run and just say, hey, you're our guy in the future. Let's see what you can do, and feed him maybe 15 carries. Or even honestly, 10 to 15 carries is probably enough at 3,200 for him to pay off. And so he's one of the guys I like that are cheaper. Do you have thoughts on that Georgia backfield, how it might shake out, or Zamir White, James Cook, any of the other options there?
Well, first off, let me just say that Austin says that he's not an expert with the DFS, but he's throwing out some good plays out here. So I do like the running backs for UGA for the simple fact that their defense is legit. So if UAB is even able to get a touchdown in this game, I'd be very, very surprised. It may be something where their defense shuts down UAB, and then they just go ahead and hand the ball off, because the game's going to be over early enough where they could give all their running backs some play. So Austin, I got to watch out for you, man, because Austin, saying he doesn't know about DFS, but some of these plays, man, are top notch, man. Top notch.
Yeah, Austin is he's hustling us.
Just you wait till Pennsylvania gets college DFS, and then it's over for all of you guys.
Well, think about it, right? Like, why would you want to throw the ball or get your receivers in the game if your defense could go ahead and just take care of the UAB offense, and then you could just go ahead and hand it off, right? Don't put your quarterback in your harm's way. You got a couple of good running backs back there, so I think a couple of the running backs back there may be a good play, and they're all pretty much cheap enough where you could go ahead besides White, you could get somebody in there at the flex position and build a nice little roster.
Carson Beck starting there too this week. I missed if you had mentioned that or not, but I mean, I think that just, favors that even more. Whatever you feel about Carson Beck, total unknown there.
Yeah, I would be surprised if they pass the ball more than 20 times. I mean, there's like y'all were both saying, right? There's no reason for them to throw the ball this week. Why would you? And so I think that's another good point. The last question I really want to talk about is, what are we doing with Breece Hall this week? So he is the most expensive running back on the slate. He's $8,000. Is Iowa, who I think is a top 3 defense in the country, top 5 defense in the country. But we know Breece Hall, right? He had 27 touches last week, 27 opportunities last week, which is it's targets plus rush attempts. Do we just say it's Breece Hall and we think he's one of the best running backs in the country? And if he's one of the best running backs in the country, he can take it to Iowa regardless. And last week was just a fluke because, Iowa State always plays bad week 1. That's just kind of who they are. He's 8,000 and he will be low rostered. I am not particularly confident in him having more than, let's say, 20% rostership. But do we want to touch Breece Hall this week at that? Because he's not cheap. He's not cheap at all.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I just think there's other plays. He had 23 carries for 69 yards with 1 touchdown, right? So if you average that out, if you compare that to the salary at 8,000, that's not a good play, right? So I think that there's other running backs. Again, we could try to stack up some UGA running backs in there in his spot, but 8,000 is just too much because Iowa's defense again is not going to be something where it's just going to be a cakewalk, So it's going to be we saw what they did last week. I expected much more from Indiana. They didn't come through. So I think that they will be able to do enough to keep him under 100 yards rushing today. Yeah.
No, that's fair. I think I will. So one lineup that I've built, and I'll talk about this one because I think that this is kind of encapsulates what I've been kind of like one of my approaches this week is I have Breece Hall in a super flex spot instead of a quarterback. And so how that lineup is built is I'm trying to maximize upside exclusively in that one. So this is a tournament entry. And I'm saying, one, I'm not going to play quarterback in this lineup. I am basically subbing Breece Hall in for quarterback because it's basically the same price. The second is I'm playing Garrett Wilson in that lineup. But he will come in at the 80% rostership. But I'm getting different elsewhere. And that lineup I just looked, it's 49,200. So I am not spending $800 in that lineup, which is a lot. Like usually you don't want to spend maybe 400, 300. That line is just different. And it's in one of the larger tournaments. So I'm not playing that game in cash. I'm not playing that game in like a smaller tournament. I'm playing that game to get different and maximize upside in a big tournament. And I think that's one of the approaches that I think you can take this week to be different and really, if you want to take down a tournament, you have to do something like that this week because there's a lot of chalk. And you can play the chalk if you want to. Because Garrett Wilson, as a spiller, chalky plays, probably got to play him. Kyron Williams, chalky play, probably got to play him. But that doesn't mean that you can't get different elsewhere. All you need to do is get different elsewhere. To have just a different lineup than someone else to take down a tournament if your plays hit. And so I have no issue playing the chalk if you can get different. I think Breece Hall in the super flex spot's one of those ways. I think even Kyron Williams in the flex spot's one of those ways. Jahan Dotson in the flex spot's one of those ways. It's risky. That's a risky line.
That's why I think that Master Teague may be a good play because I think everybody's going to be off him and he could be a sneaky play. Maybe they want to get him involved. He didn't do anything. Again, he didn't do anything last week, but he may be a good play at flex, and he's pretty cheap. He's at 5,000 right now.
No, I mean I don't hate that. I think that there is like that's another way to get different. And I think that's the big message that I have on this slate more than anything is figure out a way to differentiate yourself, because there's this is probably the chalkiest slate of the year in my opinion, because I think that they were poor at pricing some of the higher end plays. And so that is my 2 cents on kind of like how you want to play, or how you, if you're submitting some last second lineups, that's the sort of construction that I think you want to look at, and maybe sub in, just do something different if you're in tournaments. And if you're in cash, that like, and if you're in cash, you're playing like Kenny Pickett and you're playing like Jack Conn. But a lot of this is geared towards like tournament talk. So it's a strategy question about how to construct lineups this week, and I think it's very different. But I really like that approach of just, you have to get different. You just have to on this slate. Is more so than any other one.
Yeah, no, that's always, I think that's like DFS building 101, if there is such a thing. You definitely got to look at the type of tournaments that you're in, and then you also have to look at the total amount of entries, because like you said, if everybody's going chalk on certain players, then I'm not entering these tournaments to break even, or to share the pot. I want to win it all. So you definitely got to dig deep and look at some of those sleepers, if you will, to try to get you over the top in some of these tournaments.
Yep. Austin, any injury news that we're missing, or breaking news?
Not that I've seen confirmed here over the past 10, 15 minutes or so. Tough. Some of these, it's just so tough to know until they actually walk out on the field and then somebody's missing. So no other news at this point.
Yeah, I mean I have people that are asking me about start sit questions, and we're having DFS conversations on Twitter, and recommend somebody and they don't play. You just don't know, or they're suspended and you don't play. So that's really like the nature of the game that we're playing, right? It is what it is, and you just accept it.
Last night, Fowler didn't play. It's had a couple of lineups with him in there. And Alfred texted me and he was like, "Hey, I checked Twitter. There was nothing on there at 8:00. So that was a little disappointing, because I had him in a couple of tournaments, and for him not to even play due to injury, I didn't even look how I fared, because obviously if a player's out, you're automatically out the contest.
Yep. No, it's a lot of it's luck compared to the NFL side, where you have injury news an hour and a half out. So, I think this week we have some nice value. I think this week we have some good strategy to win tournaments. I think strategy was more important this week than I think what your actual lineup looks like, because there's a lot of plays that can save you value, and I don't think that it's as much. I don't think it's as much figure out who exactly to play as it is like how do you construct a lineup that can win a tournament, because I think it's going to be easy to cash this week, all things considered. Like I don't think it's going to be super challenging, because I just think there's a lot of chalk, and I think that there's some good value where you just get. But how do we get different? And I think that's the big question. But we have a couple of good options. But if you're still submitting lineups and you're at the last second waiting for news to drop, that is my number one piece of advice in the week. Figure out a way to get different, whether it's a low end guy, whether it's different lineup construction, figure it out. But if we don't have, I haven't seen another news break. I haven't seen anything happen outside of UVA crushing Illinois, which now that's surprising.
So I just hopped on this Ohio State team total first half over 20.5 points, and then that's I could see them scoring at least 3 touchdowns, right, which will get them there easily. I don't see why not. And then I like the team total for the game at 40.5. So I just jumped on top of those, and we'll see what happens. Yeah, it's 20.5 right now, first half.
I like that. I think that's a really good one. We have a lot of players in the Ohio State game, but I think that with the news breaking late about Oregon, I think that's a good way to still get value that is it's still available on books. So I like that.
Alrighty, guys, is it time to sign off? Bid everybody adieu here for the week?
I think so. No.
All right.
No breaking injury news this week.
All right, guys. Quick, where can we find you guys? And then we'll let everybody go.
Yeah, you can find me at Chris Moxley 19 on Twitter. I will be tilting all day with y'all. So, man of the people. But, we do DFS slate previews weekly. We have Why Wait Till Sunday with Alfred and 3 and Out with all three of us. And we, we're just here bringing you the best content that we can.
Yeah, definitely. You can find me at biasedopinions _ on Twitter. Doing the 3 and Out with Alfred and Chris every Wednesday, dropping on Friday. Also putting some written betting content out there for college football as well as picks. Again, like I said, I woke up this morning 2-0, got a couple plays tonight, so definitely check out campusdecanton.com and get that article. There's going to be some winners there. I mean, only if you like money, but if you don't, I understand that too. So do yourself some service and get in there and get that article.
All right. Best of luck, everyone, this week in all of your lineups, and we will see you same time, same place next week.